Right now, sitting where you are, there's an invisible gas building up in the room, an indoor air quality problem you can't see that is quietly causing brain fog and making you dumber. Not a metaphor, measurably dumber. 21% worse at thinking, according to the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. It's a textbook case of what researchers call sick building syndrome. And the wild part is you're producing it yourself with every breath, and you have no idea it's happening. A few months ago, I was working from home, and around 2 in the afternoon, I realized I'd been reading the same paragraph for 20 minutes. Reading it, reaching the end, starting over like it was brand new. My coffee was full, I'd slept fine, I wasn't sick. My brain had just stopped cooperating. I figured it was stress, a dip in productivity, or I was slowly turning into an idiot. So I went for a walk. 15 minutes outside, came back, and the paragraph made sense again, instantly, like someone hit a reset button. And that bothered me more than if it had never fixed itself, because if the problem disappears the second you leave your house and comes back the second you walk in, the problem isn't you, it's your house. You are experiencing sick building syndrome in real time. Turns out there's a team at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health led by Joseph Allen, author of Healthy Buildings, that published a study in 2015 in the journal Environmental Health Perspectives, explaining exactly what happened to me. It's called the COGfx study. They put office workers in a controlled room and measured their cognitive performance while secretly raising the carbon dioxide. Double blind. Nobody knew when the air changed. With an increase of just 400 parts per million of CO2, the difference between a ventilated office and one with the window shut all morning, cognitive scores dropped 21% on average. And on specific functions, it was worse. Crisis response dropped by almost 100%. Strategic thinking, using information, down over 100% versus the clean room. Same brain, same person, same day. Just breathing air with more CO2 and suddenly making decisions like a completely different, worse person. And an extra 400 parts per million isn't extreme. It's a normal Tuesday in a closed room with one person breathing. You produce carbon dioxide every time you exhale. In a small room with the door shut, one person can push carbon dioxide from 400 to over 1,000 in under 2 hours. 1,000 is right where the Harvard study started finding serious damage to focus and clarity. And most rooms don't have ventilation. They have a window that occasionally gets opened. Here's the stat that reframed everything for me. The Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, says Americans spend on average 90% of their time indoors, and indoor pollutant levels are typically 2 to 5 times higher than outdoors, sometimes 100 times higher. It doesn't matter if you live in the countryside. Fixing your indoor air isn't a hypochondriac's hobby. It's an engineering problem almost nobody knows they have. But carbon dioxide is just the start, because your air isn't only gas, it's particles, millions of them. They're called PM 2.5, particulate matter smaller than 2.5 microns. For scale, a human hair is 50 to 70 microns across. These are at least 20 times smaller. And that size is the whole problem, because at 2.5 microns, a particle is small enough to slip through your nose, down your windpipe, past your defenses, and lodge directly in the alveoli of your lungs. Your body catches the big stuff. The 2.5 micron particles stay, and you don't need a highway outside. Cooking on gas makes PM 2.5. Frying an egg makes particles. A scented candle makes particles. Vacuuming without a HEPA, high efficiency particulate air, filter just lifts them off the floor and sprays them back into the air. Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory found that cooking on a gas stove without a range hood can push PM 2.5 past EPA outdoor air limits, the same micrograms per cubic meter thresholds behind the Public Air Quality Index, the AQI, and the World Health Organization's air quality guidelines in minutes inside your own kitchen. This is where most people say, I'll buy a HEPA air purifier, done. And a True HEPA captures 99.97% of 0.3 micron particles. But that number hides a trap almost nobody gets. 0.3 microns is not the smallest particle a HEPA catches. It's the size it catches worst. It's called the most penetrating particle size, and it's pure physics. A HEPA filter isn't a strainer with holes. It works three ways at once. Big particles crash into the fibers by sheer momentum. Tiny particles under 0.1 microns zigzag randomly until they hit a fiber by chance. But at 0.3 microns, you're in no man's land. Too light to crash, too heavy to zigzag. So 99.97% isn't an average, it's the worst case. For every other size, the filter does better. That number is the floor, not the ceiling. So a genuine air purifier helps. But if your particles come from the stove and you've got no range hood, you're just filtering polluted air instead of stopping the pollution. It's mopping the floor with the faucet still running. Then there are the ones you can't even weigh. Volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, gases that off-gas at room temperature from paint, varnish, cleaning products, air fresheners, new furniture, carpet, glue, nail polish, markers. That new car smell everyone loves, that's a cocktail of chemicals evaporating out of the plastic and foam. You like the smell of off-gassing solvents, that's what that is. The EPA's team studies total exposure assessment methodology measured personal VOC exposure across hundreds of people. Wherever they lived, industrial, suburban, rural, a dozen common VOCs were consistently 2 to 5 times higher inside their homes than outside. And after activities like painting, some compounds spiked to 1,000 times the outdoor level and stayed elevated for hours. The most studied one is formaldehyde. It's in pressed wood, MDF, the particle board inside most modern furniture. It releases slowly for years. The International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies it as a Group 1 carcinogen, same category as asbestos and tobacco. And it's in your desk, your shelf, your kitchen. Not because anyone wants to poison you, but because it's a cheap glue and nobody reads their furniture's spec sheet. And here's the catch. A HEPA won't touch VOCs. HEPA catches particles. VOCs are single gas molecules, too small for a fiber to grab. For gases, you need activated carbon, which works by adsorption. Molecules stick to its porous surface. 1 gram of activated carbon has 800 to 1,500 square meters of internal surface. 1 gram. More surface than a 4-bedroom apartment in something lighter than a paperclip. The problem is many commercial air purifiers slap on a carbon layer so thin it saturates in weeks. There's a huge difference between 300 grams of real granular carbon that lasts months and a mesh dusted with carbon that's dead before your first payment clears. The fine print matters. So you've got 3 separate problems running at once. A gas problem, CO2, that wrecks your thinking. A particle problem, PM 2.5, that hits your lungs. And a chemical problem, VOCs, that hits everything else. 3 different threats, 3 different fixes. The EPA calls the solution the indoor air quality triad: source control, ventilation, air cleaning. In that order, and the order matters. Source control is stopping the pollution before you try to clean it. Cook on gas, use the hood. Every time, not just when it's smoky. Love scented candles? You're making soot by choice. Fine, just know it. New MDF furniture? It's off-gassing formaldehyde right now, so ventilate hard the first few months when emissions peak. Cleaning products with synthetic fragrance are adding VOCs to make your home smell clean. What you're smelling is the pollution. And 2 invisible threats worth testing for by name. Radon, the second leading cause of lung cancer, which seeps up from the ground under your floor, and carbon monoxide, not CO2, but its deadlier cousin, from anything you burn indoors. Ventilation is swapping inside air for outside air. There's a real tension here. If your outdoor air is bad, opening the window can raise your PM 2.5, but it will almost always drop your CO2. So be strategic. Open windows during low traffic hours. Open two sides of the room for cross flow. If you've got the budget, an ERV or HRV, an energy or heat recovery ventilator, mechanically exchanges air while filtering particles and recovering heat. Short of that, upgrading your central air system with a MERV 13, minimum efficiency reporting value, filter acts as a massive first line of defense. The elegant solution. But a window open 20 minutes every few hours does more than you'd think. AIR cleaning is where everything connects. HEPA for particles, activated carbon for gases. And watch the CADR, clean air delivery rate, how much clean air the device actually moves. It has to match your room size. ASHRAE, the American Society of Heating, Refrigerating, and Air Conditioning Engineers, recommends 4 to 6 air changes per hour, or ACH. A weak purifier in a big room won't get there, so you complement it with ventilation. The 3 legs are one system. Without source control, you're filtering a problem you could have avoided. Without ventilation, you're recirculating CO2 no filter removes. Without filtration, you're trusting outdoor air that probably isn't clean. None of them work alone. That's the whole point. So I went back to my office. Same desk, same chair, same room where my brain clocked out at 2 in the afternoon. But this time I bought a cheap carbon dioxide monitor, $40, and specifically one with an NDIR non-dispersive infrared sensor, so it actually measures carbon dioxide instead of just estimating it. Left it on the desk, worked with the door closed like always. 2 hours in, 900 parts per million. 3 hours, 1,120. I was sitting there suffocating in slow motion in a room with nowhere to send my own breath. I opened the window. 15 minutes later, 500. Same thing that happened the day I walked around the block and the paragraph made sense again. It was never stress, never my age. I wasn't becoming an idiot. My room was choking me and I was blaming my discipline. Now I air out the room every morning before I sit down. I cook with the hood on. I threw out the synthetic air freshener and replaced it with nothing. Turns out clean air doesn't need chemicals to smell fine. And I run a True HEPA air purifier with real granular activated carbon sized for my room. Look, it's not a glamorous topic. Nobody gets excited about air change rates, but you breathe between 12,000 and 20,000 times a day, and 90% of those breaths happen indoors, in air you've probably never measured, never thought about, never designed. The science already exists. The physics is clear. The only thing missing is you paying attention to the indoor air quality you're already breathing. It comes down to the same 3 enemies and the same fix: carbon dioxide, PM 2.5, and volatile organic compounds, beaten by source control, ventilation, and a True HEPA plus activated carbon purifier that matches your room's required CADR and ACH. So is there a window where you are? Is it open? How long have you been in there? Maybe go crack it, I'll wait.